Welcome to Dying to Know, where we open up about everything that comes with losing a loved one.
Because the only thing that's worse than death is not being able to talk about it.
We're your bereavement babes, Leah and Rachel, and today we're diving into inevitable loss. So Rachel, this episode is going to be released the week of your birthday.
Yay.
So happy birthday.
Thank you, 33.
Yes, it's officially Aries season.
It's the best season.
Any plans? Where will you be listening to this episode at?
I'm hoping Puerto Rico.
Okay.
So I'm putting that into the universe. So yes, hopefully I'll be on a beach listening to this episode come out.
All right. Hopefully when we release this episode, we'll have some vacay content from you from your birthday. That'll be good. But to continue our conversation about ambiguous loss, we chose to talk about inevitable loss, which is the type 2 definition of ambiguous loss, which I will remind everyone again what that is. Type 2 ambiguous loss is just physically present but emotional absence. So this is hitting more, for examples, people who have dementia or Alzheimer's, or just some sort of like memory loss. And then even someone who is dying and you know about it. So someone that's on hospice, which I feel like we kind of both have some stories to share there about what's been happening. So have you personally experienced this or in your family or know anything about it?
I feel like almost all of the grandparents that I really grew up with kind of I experienced with it. With both of my grandpas, they both started to have memory loss and then all ended up in hospice. So it was like you kind of assume that what happened with like older people and like that's how they end their lives. But I feel like for my grandpa, who we dedicated an episode to, and it happened not too long ago, it was a little weird to experience because I had like lost my dad. So it was hard to get the questions like, oh, like, where's your dad today? And it's just like, it's weird to hear and experience like for me, but then it's also like, do I mention it? Do I say something to them? Do I ruin their day? Because my mom would try to help them to like understand, and it's weird to see like their reaction to it because my grandpa, he was at the funeral and he did see it all happen and was like fully aware at the time. So it's like as they progress, it gets very hard. And then I would say it definitely is difficult because my grandma, who is my dad's mom, is definitely going through it and doesn't have the best memory. So when she brings up my dad and doesn't always fully remember, like, I guess it's just such a weird feeling because I wanted to have those like conversations with her about my dad and like she like loved him so much and my dad was such like, I guess, a mama's boy. So it's just like I wish I would have gotten to experience a little bit more. We could have talked about like how much like we loved him and all the stories with it where I've gone down sometimes. She's like, oh, like I haven't heard from Jeff, my dad, in a while, and just like, oh, it breaks your heart.
Oh, yeah.
But I have talked about it in therapy just to kind of like better understand it. My therapist says like, you know, it's hard for them and you can like figure out how much you do and don't want to tell them because it can be triggering for them. And she's like, if anything, ask them questions about like your dad's childhood because you're like, that's what's kind of going to be the more easier situation.
Yeah.
And I feel like when looking up Alzheimer's and dementia stuff, they say to kind of try and figure out what might be triggering them when it comes to like the patient's grief. And trying to figure out what you can do to kind of prevent those triggers, which I thought is a nice way to...
smart.
Yeah.
All right. So I know you were saying like their memory loss. So is it better? I guess I don't want to say better because I'm not a doctor and neither are you. But like she was saying to ask them more questions about the past than like currently in the present. Okay. So like... I know me and you have spoke like when we have to talk about our fathers and use past tense, how it feels like a gut punch every time when you're like, well, and it's like, no, he was.
Yeah.
So when they ask, do you feel that like jerky feeling or like that gut punch again when they go like, oh, where's Jeff? I haven't spoke to him in a week. Do you go like, ugh, that hurts?
Not in the same sense as like what you've kind of mentioned where it's just like, I'm not sure if it's I feel like the reference that you made, it makes me feel like, is it going to make the other person uncomfortable? Where I feel like this one is just like, damn, like grandma doesn't remember dad or your grandma didn't understand like what went on, where I'm just like, I wish I could just sit and talk to her about, because she couldn't make it to the funeral and with everything and being so sick. So it's just like, I guess I also feel like I'm missing him, like a little more part of him where I'm like, you felt like you could go to your grandma to grab a little more part of my dad, which is why I love being around his sisters so much. And like I feel his energy. Yeah. Where it's just like I would have loved to have almost that sad moment with my grandma and like truly have just like mourned with her, which I feel like, I guess that's the ambiguous grief. I feel like the loss of not being able to grieve with my grandma about like my dad's loss.
Yeah, because her as a person, she's still physically present in your life, and you can have conversations and continue to create memories with her.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's the death of the person that she was, or the death of the conversations that could have taken place to continue to progress and like reminisce in that relationship.
Yeah, it's like the what ifs, or like maybe could have had, or like but. So I feel like those are kind of the hard losses to also deal with when it comes, because it's like they're right there. Or it's just like almost just that like big hug from so sorry that like
That's
you don't
true,
really get, like you still feel their love, but it's just like that moment of just like, I want your comfort of like knowing what I went through, I'm going through. And it's like, it's hard because then now you want to keep her safe too. It's like, does she want to know and relive it?
Yeah.
What about you? Have you experienced that?
I've never experienced memory loss. I had an aunt that, I was going to say, she was hard of hearing, but it has nothing to do with like memory. We had to yell at her. But I did have an experience growing up as a child with a great uncle, my mom's uncle, who was on hospice. But it's kind of like a very like soft story a little bit. But like going into this episode and like thinking about hospice, I really didn't know a lot about it. So I looked up some facts about like, apparently there's types of hospice. There's 4 types. So there's routine, respite, continuous, and in general inpatient. So routine is like more home care is provided in the home. I think a lot of people probably would want that as number one, like someone that they love and know taking care of them. And then respite is an inpatient facility, which I didn't really know they had like just
because I actually think that's what my grandfathers went to. Like they went to a location.
Okay.
Where I can't remember if my mom's dad went, but I know with my grandpa, eventually like he was placed in more of the hospice section of like the
facility.
The facility.
Okay, so it's like a facility that has other things, and then they just have like a unit. Okay, that's what I thought. But I'm assuming that there probably are facilities that are like fully out. And then there's continuous, which is around the clock care, and then just general inpatient, which is an intensive inpatient facility. So I just think it's levels depending on like how sick you could be, or like what they think the outcome might be. But I did have an uncle, a great uncle, who was on hospice. So again, this was the 90s. I was a child. I remember my mom breaking it down to me and my youngest brother, like, you know, Uncle Chick is dying, and we're all going to go say goodbye. We're gathering, and we're all just going to meet at his house. So I just remember the house being full of adults. And then my memory is going upstairs, standing in the doorway, because I was just like, I didn't know what I was going into at the time. From like Tales from the Crypt was a show out, and I just didn't know. Like, as a kid, your imagination is going, wow, like if someone's dying, what is that going to look like? But I remember him just laying across the bed as if he was watching TV in a pair of underwear, like tighty whities. And I remember him telling me to come here. And my mom was like, you know, just hug him and tell him you love him. And that's what I did. And he was like, love you too, baby. And I just walked out the door. And it just seemed peaceful, which reminds me of like the question you were asking, like, how would you want to die? And I'm like, I guess it would be home. He seemed very like at ease or at comfort. So I'm assuming like when people are at the end of their life, they probably are thinking about the comforts of life and being surrounded by people that they love. And
I also feel like, because we brought my niece Elena to see my grandfather's, and I feel like how your mom, like, and he asked for the kids, like, I feel like there's something about like getting that little kid energy too that just helps like bring a little brightness to such a scary situation.
No, that's true. I know we have like a Prince album behind me today for Purple Rain, but I remember Prince even made a comment about like, as I get older, I don't want to be around other old people. I want to be around young people. And I feel like as I am going to age, because I'm still young, but I feel that sentiment of just being like, I want to be around like youthful people, to be in the know and like have life around me, and not people walking around with no teeth or like upset or like angry at the world. Not that all old people are like that, or you know what I mean? But
no, it's funny because my dad used to like brag that he would like, I guess whenever he would go to the hospital, that he was the youngest one there and like the, the youthful one. And then like we'd all sit with him like, is that a good thing?
Good thing, like, do you want to be
But
here?
he also said age was all a mindset, which is again where we always come back, where it's just like live your life to the fullest. Like that's how they were doing it. Because he would always just be like, yes, I'm this age, but I still feel like 25. Like, yes, I'm this age, but I still like driving and everything. Like, he just had this like youthful mindset that always just kept him going. So I feel this like it is just a mindset. Unfortunately, your knees don't know that.
I was going to say your body, knees, and everything else don't know it. But you're right. I do feel like
that
it is
youthful
a mindset.
energy around.
Definitely. With your grandparents' experience, I'm assuming, were they in hospice for their?
Both my grandfathers were in hospice.
Okay.
And again, if you're going into hospice, it's kind of known that it's not going to be a long amount of time. So they were there, but again, I guess not tremendously long.
Okay, yeah, because they were in like a facility where like caretakers are taking. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just curious, like, as I'm talking to you about like hospice, like there are people who do that for a living.
Wow.
Which, it's because I'm just like, the capacity of what they take on every day emotionally. And I'm sure when they are that close to someone who is at the end of life, that they probably make connections and relationships. And obviously with people with memory loss, I'm sure it's troubling to like remind them or have like little songs that they do, like, remember, I come and do this, it's 12 o'clock. Like, I wonder their POV of like taking care of a person like that,
but it's like also keeping them alive and as comfortable as like possible,
knowing that this is, you know, possibly the end. Even though we do hear stories about people going into hospice and living, you know, longer than what was expected, and, you know, doing a 180 with their health and getting out. But my mind is with the people who do that for a living, and then also with people who are taking care of their loved ones right now in a home facility. And just seeing them wither away, like knowing that they've lost the emotional connection to the person and they're physically present, and knowing that their second half of grief, out of the ambiguous part, will have to be actually grieving them.
Physical loss.
Physically gone,
No, it's, a wild thing to think about. And like, how they must like, or even prepare themselves for that, knowing it's like, this is the end of the job.
Yeah. Like, I wonder how planning goes, or
I know,
you know,
conversations. Or like also what their job offers them to like maybe deal with it, or like what requirements, because that's a crazy loss to have to constantly go through on a daily basis.
True. Today's episode is dedicated to Isabel Mama Isa Hernandez, which is Rachel's great-grandmother. Again, we are your bereavement babes, Leah and Rachel, and we'll see you on the other side.